What's going on? Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. Today we dissect the biggest burning questions for the Vikings entering 2025.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, surrounded by wildfires, but still somehow Mike Flores blowing more smoke.
You hate the guy. Hey, this is a reef at the Wide Left Substack. I haven't watched the game yet, so no spoilers. What happens?
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talks Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another episode of the Minnesota Football Party right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Remember, you can always find this show on audio if you want to listen under the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed. And, of course, on video right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, keep up with all the action. All right, lots to dive into today, fellas. I got a list of the biggest burning questions for this team for the 2025 offseason. Including who's on your list of candidates to replace Brian Flores if he does in fact leave, maybe a blueprint on how to fix the interior offensive line as well. It's Thursday. That also means Ron Johnson should be stopping by later on as well. But before we get on all that, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. All right, so I got this list of burning questions I want to dive into. Maybe before we get into all that, maybe I should just open the floor to any final parting thoughts on the 2024 season, a eulogy maybe if anybody has one. Arif said he didn't watch the game. Maybe we don't want to spoil
Eulogy?
him.
Wait, did they lose?
Well,
No.
here's the thing. How do you define lose? You know, I mean, how do you define that legally?
If you think about it, they
legally.
went up at least 4 spots in the draft. So
hey, a group of
that was valuable.
overachievers. Yeah,
really
that was
smart
valuable.
move by Kwesi to throw that one.
You know,
Well, I
think
mean, as
back-
we all know, the purpose of the season is to secure the best draft spot for the next season. That is the goal.
Yeah, that's why the
That's always
Tennessee
the goal.
Titans are the greatest franchise in the league right now.
number one in the power rankings this offseason. I
They
think back
definitely
to the
didn't fire
beginning.
anybody responsible for that
No,
season.
of course not. This team was a group of overachievers, though, by most metrics, right? A magical 14-win season nobody saw coming, but also, that nightmarish closing chapter, I guess, if you will, those last 2 weeks. Obviously left us all with a bad taste in our mouths, just the way things ended. Us three haven't spoke since Monday morning show. Obviously, Luke, you were on the postcast with me after the game, but now that you've both had a chance to maybe watch some tape or let things digest, a little bit, I guess, any notable things you want to share or get off your chest about the Rams game, how everything went down? Maybe a crazy stat or analytic you might have found that kind of paints a more accurate picture, I guess, if you will, just the way things unfolded.
Yeah, let's.
And
we got one from the chat.
Highlighted the James Kunow
James.
stat. I'm not going to look this up to verify. It sounds correct, and I'm horrified by the fact that it definitely is 100% correct.
Boy.
Sam
Semi-nerdy
Darnold lost
stat-
more sack yardage in the wild card game than Josh Allen did all year for the audio listeners.
So that's good.
I was gonna say, cause you gotta let me set up.
So I thought you were just all right.
Good
Did you guys see the
alley-oop.
Alec Lewis on X, obviously, pulled the Pro Football reference numbers for poor throws? Poor throws meaning balls that weren't catchable with normal effort. The first 16 games, Darnold had 64 poor throws. That was 12.7%. Just round up, call it 13% poor throws. The final 2 weeks, he had 23. That was 28.4%. So he went from 13% to over double those last 2 weeks, first Detroit, first the Rams. And just to give you an idea, too, the league average is 16%. So 16% is average. Final 2 weeks, Sam Darnold, 28.4%. Anthony Richardson was the worst in the league, just for context, at 28%. I think I actually saw a quote tweet from our guy, Krauser. Great analogy. I bookmarked it. He quote tweeted, it said 13% to 28%. That's like going from Joe Burrow as your quarterback to Anthony Richardson the final 2 weeks. And, we talked about it. It started the first 2 third downs versus Detroit. He missed Hawkinson on throws he's made all year long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Lights
don't
are too
have
bright.
anything to
Turn
add
them
to
off.
that.
They're too bright.
That's it. That's all we got.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
I got my stuff off my chest in the postcast, so go rant, Arif.
There's not much to say, right? Like, he was inaccurate. He was inaccurate from a muddy pocket. He was inaccurate from a clean pocket. He was inaccurate from a blitz. He was inaccurate without a blitz. He was inaccurate in a box. He was inaccurate with green eggs and ham. It was bad.
It's not great. It's not great. I'm just looking at some bookmarks. I got Tanner Weber on X, Vikings penalty leaders this year. Remember, the Vikings finished the year with the best plus-minus in penalties in the entire league. But number 1 and number 2, your left tackle, left guard, Cam Robinson, who obviously only played half the year. Most penalties on the team with 13. Blake Brandel, number 2 with 11. Brian O'Neill, number 3 on the team with 6. Obviously, offensive linemen, I'm sure if I comb through every single team leader in penalties, offensive lineman has to be in the top 3 for every team, just given the position, right? I mean, holdings, false starts, they're so common. But let's see, number 4, Turner, Pace, Gilmore, tied with 5 at 4. And then Johnny Munt, Darisaw, Bradbury, Grenard, all with 4, tied at 5th. So 24 penalties, though, between
the
Cam
Blake
Robinson
Brandel one is concerning. The Cam Robinson one is outstanding. Holy crap. How do you manage that many in such a short period of time? Don't got to worry about it, though. He's not here next week.
Yeah.
I know the fix for that.
Yeah. He's gone. He's gone.
But,
hey, Luke, play the sound real quick.
Ooh.
Oh, is this Jalen
It's gonna
Redmond?
take me a
Sorry, I
second.
spoiled it.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Yep, Jalen Redmond re-signed. First re-signing of the offseason. It's always just like a random easy guy. It's like the Johnny Munts of the world get done before like the ones you really like. The guys that are going to make money are going to negotiate and take time and
they also like
stare at you until the deadline.
Jalen Redmond's also on like a restricted free agency contract, so like he almost can't say no.
Re-signed tells me that they didn't do the tender. They actually signed him to a contract,
which is cool.
Which they didn't have to, but that goes to show you what they thought of his season.
Which I think we agree on.
Yep,
rough around.
They're correct about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we all like that one for sure. Arif giving us a little robot noise per usual, hitting his
God,
quota
you
per
got to be
show,
kidding me.
usually over under at 1.5. So he's on the board here, 8 minutes in. Burning questions, I got a list. So give me your best, just like minute or two, just your initial thought process here. We'll try to rifle through these. Starting with Brian Flores seems to be one of the hot A topics. Gut feeling today, does he stay? And if not, have you started to look at maybe your top 2 or 3 wish lists, I guess, to replace him? Not who you think they will choose, but who you like, who you guys like. I'll start. I think he's back for one more year if I were had to guess. But if not, guys to replace him, I'm certainly not opposed to keeping it in-house with Durante Jones, letting him carry the torch, everything he learned from Flores these 2 years. If they do go external, if they do go outside, I wouldn't mind anyone of Patrick Graham from the Raiders, Robert Saleh, Lou Anarumo from the Bengals, unless he retires, he's getting up there in age. But any one of those guys I'd be fine with just on the surface without doing a ton of deep dive. That's just sitting right there right now 3 days after the season ended, just quickly scanning through the guys of potential, defensive coordinators who could be available. Arif staying or going, Brian Flores, and top 2 or 3 options if he does leave.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I think that Brian Flores is going to stay. I think that owners are hesitant about the guy. I'm kind of surprised he even got interviews. He has 3 interviews. Like that was mentioned on the previous show, those interviews are part of teams that are casting a really wide net in their search. So I don't know. But, if he does go, right, if he ends up being a head coach somewhere, which would frankly be awesome, for him and just I just like the idea that he learned from his mistakes and maybe he's a good head coach post Miami and stuff like that. That'd be awesome.
Story arc. Yeah. Good arc there.
I think that argument can be made for sure. And he probably will in those interviews.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. But, should that happen, I think the Vikings stay internal with Durante Jones. I think that Jones has learned a lot from a lot of different defenses. And so that's valuable. It sounds like the Vikings value him a lot internally based off of kind of the way that the discussions around him have cropped up. So I'm kind of excited about that. Other than that, I'm kind of at a loss for like who would be kind of an interesting candidate outside of the building. You mentioned Louis Anarumo. I definitely want to explore that. I'd kind of want to take a look at whoever the Chiefs defensive backs coach is, because I mean, obviously the Chiefs have not been outstanding this season defensively. Although again, like what's going on with the Chiefs, but they've had a couple of injuries at the back end. But I mean, Spagnuolo has been incredible. And I feel like there's a pretty good chance that someone's probably learned a fair amount from him. And, just kind of taking a look at the defensive backs, defensive line coaches around the league.
Merritt. That's the defensive backs coach.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So hopefully he's a good person. So
28th season in the NFL, including his playing career, and his 6th season as D-backs coach in KC. So there's a lot of success stories in that.
Yeah, for sure. I also saw Jim Leonard on somebody's list.
Jim
Broncos
Leonard.
Defense.
I like
defensive
that.
pass game coordinator as well. So some options, right? Some options to at least if Flores does leave, sleep a little bit easier at night. It's going to sting though for me, man, if he does leave, which again, I don't think he is, but still on the table for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're good though. I mean, it's a wide net and he's in like very crowded pools. It doesn't mean that those teams can't pick him. It just means you're like 1-18.
Right.
Like with the Jets
supply demand thing right now going on.
Yeah, like even the Jags have 10 candidates on their list. That's more than the Vikings had when they did this a few years ago. So yeah, it's pretty wide nets. I think like odds probably favor Flores staying just by virtue of someone else getting a couple of jobs. He's only been tagged for 3 of these jobs, and I think there are only 2 more that even have not finalized their lists. But if he does go, I kind of like Gerard Mayo, to be honest.
I wouldn't mind Gerard Mayo either. I really would.
Like the thing about a lot of these guys, if you want to go take Jim Leonard or somebody else that doesn't run a Belichick style scheme, you are giving really weird assets to somebody. Like, what does Lou Anarumo do with Dallas Turner or Josh Metellus or Andrew Van Ginkel? Like, you need a 3-4 guy. You need, you need somebody that, uses that kind of stunt heavy approach that Belichick defenses use. And that's why I kind of like Gerard Mayo for that. Or somebody else off of one of those staffs if you're going to look. But I think I still
Steve Belichick
probably am with that kind of guy.
He's a guy.
But I think I'm with Arif that promoting Durante Jones feels like the path of least resistance.
Agreed. Keep the questions coming in the chat. Kit Fisto's dental plan. If you could keep one of Wes Phillips or Josh McCown next year, who would you keep?
I guess Wes Phillips. I don't know.
I don't care though.
Yeah, it's not an answer.
Grant
I have enough. It's a lot of consternation about Grant Dinsky and the Seahawks right now. Not a lot of information.
I'm sure you're hearing quite a bit from both sides.
Yeah, thanks. And I've been accused of being a mole of all things. No, I don't have enough information about McCown or Phillips to provide an accurate accounting of kind of like who does what and who's responsible for what and how, one has provided, a key element of something versus the other. I know a lot of people are like, what does Wes Phillips even do? And I get it, but like play calling is like the end of the week, right?
It's like George Edwards for all those years, right? Under Zimmer. What's this guy?
He has a similar role as the one Kevin O'Connell had in Los Angeles, where he's doing a lot of like designing, game planning, kind of cooking some of these up while O'Connell has the menu on Sundays.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. When you're doing meal development and then someone else cooks it and then the other person gets the credit, it's kind of difficult, right? But yeah, no, I think that it's likely that Wes Phillips has a bigger impact on the Vikings' success so far offensively, but I don't know. So it's a soft preference for Wes Phillips.
Yeah, these are tough to say without being inside the building, being around these guys, obviously 24/7. But I think we're all in agreement. We think the gut feeling is Flores does stay for one more year. If he doesn't, they go the organic route. They go in-house and Pass the torch to Durante Jones. I think that makes a lot of sense on paper anyways. Next burning question, KOC and Kwesi extensions. You think they go down this offseason? Should both of them get them? Are these no-brainers? Is there anything standing in the way outside of like Florio reported KOC's a grumpy cat?
They're no-brainers.
They didn't offer him one last
They're
year.
no-brainers to me.
There's no opportunity cost to it.
Yeah.
There's no opportunity cost to it. Whether or not you're going to extend Sam Darnold, you got to decide if that's worth using money that could go to other players, and that's a finite resource. But if the Wilfs waste a lot of their own personal money, none of us should care. That they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
they're doing okay.
There's no cap for this.
I mean, the issue for people is not like, oh God, that's so much money to spend on a GM or whatever. The issue is that people like don't like Kwesi, which I don't like super understand. Like I get like some of these draft classes have not really super panned out or anything like that. But like
one of these draft classes, the other ones are either too early or have Jordan Addison and DJ Hawkinson from them. Like
right, yeah. But like people are focused on that and not focused on the fact that like all of the player acquisition is actually his responsibility, not just the draft. And so these trades that have gone super, super well, the free agent signings that have gone insanely well, one of the better free agent classes I've seen in a while, was this offseason. That's Kwesi. He did that. I don't know how to obviously Flores influenced the Andrew Van Ginkel signing, and obviously, right? But that's also the job of the GM, is to kind of incorporate coach feedback, figure out what works and what doesn't from that feedback, and synthesize that all together in a cohesive plan to produce player acquisitions. And I feel like a GM that has produced multiple playoff appearances in concert with the coach, obviously, working
during
with
their rebuild,
4 or 5
by the way.
quarterbacks.
Yeah, during a rebuild, right?
Kwesi's been nothing but impressive to me,
Yeah.
even if the first draft class sucked. Like, I'm sorry that one draft class was really painful for you all, but
his complete body of work now, his resume completely outweigh. Yes, there's one blemish for sure, but boy, you weigh out all the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons for sure.
Like also, like he's
done a great job.
Sam Darnold was also partly his decision. Like, people are really excited about like the insane value that he got for Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
like that's not just Kevin O'Connell. We should stop desegregating this. He made a decision to pursue Sam Darnold. Excellent work, my guy.
Yeah, for sure. Plus all the, I mean, you already mentioned, but all the Blake Cashman's, Grenard, Aaron Jones, for example. I mean, you can go up and down the list, dude.
Excellent work with Aaron Jones signing.
Just an absolutely insane free agency.
Yeah,
just slam dunk after slam dunk.
It does feel like both these are slam dunks for sure. And for
like you can
sides,
extend them
too,
and then fire them next year. That happens in the league, and nobody cares. Like there is no reason not to do that. Unless there is, like the thing Mike Florio is pushing out, like, oh, there's like tension between, like, unless there's a personal issue, this will get done. And by the way, the local beat, which are the people you should actually trust, have reported, they're going to like start this conversation like now.
As they should. Good. Absolutely. Yeah. Slam dunks. Again, for both sides. If you're the Wilf side, I mean, how could you not be loving?
Wilfs just pulled the Star Tribune, and they were like, yeah, you can cite us, the Wilfs.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Heard it right from the horse's mouth. There you go. And also, too, like from KOC and Kwesi's side, they both built this competitive rebuild. They're finally here. They've got all this money to play with now. They got their rookie quarterback they love. Why would they bail out now? I mean, unless they're just getting low ball offers. By the way, what is like the going rate for a top 5, top 10 head coach and GM? I don't know. I have no idea. Like the going rate the last 2-3 years. What do those numbers look like?
New coaches or coaches that are like the third or fourth option for their franchises when they sign on. Typically $3-4 million a year. That's gone up a little bit recently. And then at the higher end of that, you get obviously like Gruden famously like $10 million a year. So that's kind of like a head coach does not cost as much as a quarterback is what I'm getting at. Like a reasonable corner, right? Like a Stephon Gilmore is your high level head coach. It is, I think, maybe the greatest inefficiency in football right now, that you can acquire someone so impactful for like money wise, a lot less than it would take to acquire a similar caliber player. And because it's uncapped, there's no opportunity cost, like Luke Braun said. One of the strangest elements of the Jerry Jones era is how underinvested in coaches that franchise sometimes is. Really high head coach salaries sometimes, and then they underinvest in the strength and conditioning. They don't staff out to the full extent that the head coaches want. Crazy to me for the most lucrative franchise to not take advantage of the uncapped environment for some of these advantages. The Wilfs, not like that. If they want to hire some guys, the head coaching, the staff has the capacity to do that. So,
Holmes anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So we're talking between 3.5 at the low end, all the way up to 12 million at the high end.
Okay,
I think that's where like Andy Reid is, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kevin O'Connell was like 8-9 million a year.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. I just needed a ballpark. That's good. Last one, then we'll move on. We'll hit a quick little break. This one's kind of tough, but you guys think both Christian Darrisaw and Jordan Addison start week 1 for 2025? Darrisaw obviously coming off the ACL. It's tough. We're not doctors. We're not in the building. We don't know. Addison dealing with that court case that got pushed back. Technically could still face a suspension. It's January 16th, but gut feeling, Darrisaw,
I could see
Addison.
It.
River Rat
I can see
in
with
the
Addison.
comments. Sorry, River Rat in the comments
timeline.
has corrected me. Andy Reid is 20 million.
Whoa.
So that's
okay.
20 million. Oh boy.
So 3.5 to 20 million is the range. It's much higher.
Right.
I asked on Blue Sky, like, vibes? What do you think 20 mil should get you in today's market? And people were like, oh, I don't know, a backup guard. No, it gets you Andy Reid.
That's way more than,
or not a backup. They were like, oh, an okay starter or two. Like, no, it gets you Andy Reid.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christian Darrisaw's timeline. He has the same timeline as TJ Hawkinson. It's the same injury. He got it earlier in the season, so he figures to be earlier. If you kind of do that same math, he's like probably questionable for week 1. It's like right up against it, depending on how his rehab goes. Yeah. And the margin of error is large. He could be ready by camp if everything goes really, really well. He could also not be back until Halloween. Yeah. So that's
the thing with that injury.
I'm not going to speculate on suspension decisions.
Yeah. Daniel Jones season.
Put Daniel Jones in until Darrisaw is back. Let him get beat up. Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much. All right, coming up, dream scenario when it comes to fixing this offensive line. Plus, Ron Johnson should be stopping by here soon. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose on your first $5 wager. Why I love FanDuel. When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win or lose your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get on some NFL future action while you're there. Lions currently plus 290 to win the bowl. Kansas City Chiefs right behind them at plus 350. It's all sitting up there over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, again, should have Ron Johnson stopping by here soon, but let's dive into this. The other topic, it feels like every time I go on social media or X, whatever it may be, everybody's talking about the offensive line, interior offensive line specifically. Just talked about Darrisaw. Tough to gauge, but maybe, hopefully, knock on wood, should be ready for week 1. We'll see when we get there. But, you know, when I look at this offensive line and getting whether it's the best bang for your buck, but also you got to accomplish, Luke and I talked about this on the postcast, you got to move the needle here. Okay, it feels like a decade trying to get these dollar bin guys, especially on the interior offensive line. They're just not moving the needle, not giving you what you need, especially when you think about the best teams in the playoffs right now. Trench play, obviously so important. I can't not think about the Chiefs, what they did a few years ago when they overhauled their offensive line. Was that 2021? They got smoked by the Bucs in the Super Bowl, like 31-9. Mahomes was pressured like 38, 40% of his dropbacks, something like that. They said, you know what? We know what we got to do. They went out. that offseason, they made Joe Thuney the highest paid guard in the NFL. They traded for Orlando Brown Jr. They hit a grand slam in the draft, though, too. That's what really pushes this over. Creed Humphrey, second round. Trey Smith had a lot of injury designations going on, multiple knee surgeries. They take a flyer on him in the 6th round. He's been a slam dunk, man. He's been a grand slam. So that's the dream. Now, Vikings don't have to trade for a tackle like the Chiefs did, so that's good. They got their 2 bookend tackles. But when you look at, and I know it's early, but when you look at the pending free agents out there, knowing they've only got 1 early pick to use and a ton of needs that we'll get into later that they're going to need these draft picks for, what should Kwesi do with all this money? I mean, everybody's just talking about Trey Smith. He's the top choice, and then it feels like there is a big drop-off. Kevin Zeitler, 35 years old, could retire. Brandon Sheriff, who I loved Sheriff in his prime, but he's fallen off so much. He's 33 years old. And now we're just doing the veteran journeyman thing like the Dalton Reisners and the guys they got before him in the past as well. That, again, feels like they've been doing for a decade. I want the Steve Hutchinson. Who's the Steve Hutchinson? Is that Trey Smith? Is that the only other option? You know, I'm looking at a list here right now. There's plenty of lists you can go find, but Tevin Jenkins from Chicago, if they don't re-sign him. Patrick McCarry, 27 years old, has snaps everywhere on the offensive line. Mekhi Becton kind of turned things around in Philly. He's only 26. Philly, though, obviously a very run-heavy system. Zach Martin, 34 years old, coming off ankle surgery. He might retire. So interior guard, interior offensive line. There's some centers in here as well, by the way. I'm not going to read them all off. But Drew Dahlman seems to be the top choice for a lot of people. 26 years old, great athlete. A lot of fun when you watch him. Then you get into the Ryan Kellys. Indianapolis Colts, 33 years old. Austin Corbett, big drop-off. So, I don't know. It's kind of the top 2 at both positions, Trey Smith and Dahlman, then a big drop-off just from what I'm seeing early on. And again, a lot of dominoes have to fall, but early game plans or blueprint for this interior offensive line. With all the money they got and 1 first-round draft pick, what do you guys think?
Luke, you're muted. Luke Braun.
I have a controversial take to start, which is that you probably have to not get rid of as many guys as you can before you start going into acquisitions. As much as we super duper hate Blake Brandel right now, you can't risk replacing Blake Brandel with someone worse than Blake Brandel. And don't tell me it can't get worse than Blake Brandel. We all watched Dakota Dozier not that long ago.
It can always
get worse. And if you are over the age of 10 and you haven't learned this, open your eyes. Wake up.
Wake up. Okay, so in addition to the free agent list, Over the Cap put out their list of 100 most likely cap casualties. Now, of course, many of these players are underperforming, so you don't necessarily want to go way out of your way to grab them. But a couple of players caught my eye as players who've played well, but because of the team situation or because of whatever else, may be potential cap casualty to watch out for. The 2 that I paid attention to are Mitch Morse, center for the Jaguars, who is 33, so he's not a long-term solution, right? And then the most performant of this list. So the most performance, Max Crosby. Wow, that'd be awesome if they cut him. They won't. After that is
he's making kind of a stink though, right?
Right.
Maybe make it personal.
Yeah, anything is possible, right? But Isaac Seumalo from the Steelers, left guard, playing really well, but evidently, whatever the situation is or whatever, might make it possible that he's a cap casualty, if probably more likely a renegotiation. But if he hits, free agency, that's someone to pay attention to. Same with Alex Kappa for the Bengals, right guard. A pretty decent player, right? None of these players
probably
are
not
like
the problem on that line.
Right, exactly. None of these players are like Joe Thuney, right? That would be an outstanding get. You don't really get a lot of those opportunities. But, those are, areas where you can spend a little bit of money, not a ton, and get one of those 3 positions resolved, whether it's center, left guard, or right guard. And then once you trade down 3-4 times in the draft and, avail yourself to all of the opportunities the second round has to offer you, you might be able to find kind of a standout guard or center. So you might be able to solve 2 of those in one off season, or at least put a Band-Aid on one, solve the other one long-term. And you're in a much, much better position. So maybe you're in a spot where it's like, oh, you've got Blake Brandel. Maybe you move him to center. I don't know. Maybe you could do that.
Yeah.
And then you've got a left guard and a right guard, one who's a rookie, one who's a known veteran. That kind of stuff. So it is possible for you to produce an offensive line that in 2025 by the addition of some average players, could be one of the best offensive lines, assuming Brian O'Neill plays at the level that he's played for most of the season, assuming that Christian Darrisaw comes back early. That's a really great line if you have three average interior players.
Yeah, the Vikings right now on the interior have kind of chosen to cheap out. Everybody's very cheap. The most expensive asset there is probably Ed Ingram by draft capital, but Garrett Bradbury's not an expensive center. Blake Brandel's on a really tiny deal. So I don't want you, like, guys, don't set an expectation that they're going to swap out 3 interior line spots in one offseason. Like, I feel like we're just careening toward like Blake Brandel, Garrett Bradbury, and a different guy at right guard. And then they're just going to like kind of run back 4 or 5 and go, well, but we have money to spend elsewhere. Like, I feel like they're going to be more conservative about it, but maybe that's just me kind of being used to them. But he's cheap, which I kind of hate, but I feel like they're going to.
I get it. I get where they're coming from.
I get it.
Yeah, like, I think Macho Meach actually asked, like, are there any, Andrew Van Ginkels or guys that are hurt or guys that are underrated, these kind of bargain bin free agents. And at guard, I think if you're doing that, you're getting someone old.
It feels like when I look at this list, you're right. It feels like it. Yeah.
Well, and that, I mean, that's going to be who's available on the offensive line.
Yeah.
If you want the bargain, if you want the value play that could still have a good season, you have to like try to get the Stephon Gilmore of this. I think there's a lot of candidates for that, but that's what we're doing.
Right.
And I think the decision we all want them to make is to go get the Joe Thuney, to go get, whatever that year's guy is. And it's Trey Smith this year. But there's always that guy that everybody's really excited about.
Who was the Dolphins D tackle last year? The stud.
The Christian Wilkins. Yeah. Like, go get the big, the big free agent guy. Yeah. And I don't see them doing that at guard because they very clearly just think it's okay to like eat some interior pressure to save money.
So someone in chat just suggested trading for White. PHTNVL traded for Whitehall from the Browns. With what? What is your draft capital to trade for this guy?
Give him a 5th round pick back.
Yeah, he's a 30-year-old. I'm not going to say underperforming, but this 2024 season was not as good as his like prior 5 seasons or prior 4 seasons where he was playing some truly great football. So, I don't know why that is. I haven't been paying a ton of attention to Wyatt Teller. Maybe there's an injury lurking or something like that. But, he's not played as well as he did in the past. And he's 30. So better than the 33-year-old Isaac Sayamalu, I guess. But, if you're trading for a 30-year-old, it better be cheap, especially because the Vikings just do not have capital.
They got no
capital. Might even be
able
to swap.
The Browns also can't trade him before June 1st without losing money on that.
Well, did they just re-sign him or something? That's crazy.
That's insane. They must have restructured him. They're going to be in a restructure hell the likes of which Rick Spielman could not dream up. Like, they're going to be putting the Saints to shame here soon, and all of their players are going to become like untradeable, and they're just going to be like in hell.
Also, couldn't happen to a better pair of franchises, honestly.
honestly. Just like the draft classes,
mysterious ways.
Free agency. Just like the draft classes, free agency, they have their own strengths and weaknesses too, and you want to attack the value, right? And when I look at this, these interior offensive linemen, just to you guys' point, like, it's kind of top heavy, but boy, it falls off pretty quick, and you don't want to get caught 2-3 years down the road with a bad contract, overpaying, especially for some of these guys that are into their 30s right now. Versus when I do look at something like just cornerback or safety, for example, there seems to be some more options that I like, a little bit younger guys. DJ Reed, 28 years old. Mike Hilton, okay, a little bit older, but solid slot cornerback. Byron Murphy, obviously, we'll get into that conversation. Safety, Justin Reed, everybody loves him. Javon Holland from Miami, 25-year-old, very versatile. There just seems to be more options over there. Jeremy Chin in the box, guys. So
at cornerback, I'm okay with a little bit more roster turnover. And in fact, Mike Hilton would be a really, really good fit for what the Vikings do.
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
Right, crazy good fit. Built in a lab for this kind of fit. But I mean, he is a little bit older. But he's a little bit older. But I outside of cornerback, I think most of these free agent positions that we talked about will be resolved with some free re-signings. Like, I think they'll re-sign Cameron Bynum, right?
Well, Well, let's get into that
and
conversation.
Theo
because-
Jackson.
Well,
and-
before we move on, Luke,
Yeah,
what does the late third round of the draft look like? Because the Vikings are supposed to get a comp pick, and that kind of feels like a time to go try again at a day 2 guard.
Let's get a guard.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I mean, they drafted those two, Michael Juergens and Walter Rouse as of now. Obviously,
Yeah,
Great.
obviously
guys deep.
developmental guys. Again, I just feel like at that point, I mean, unless you get lucky, and it's not luck always, right? It's the environment, it's the coaching, development, things like that. But like the Chiefs hitting a Creed Humphrey and a Trey Smith, I mean, how likely is that? That just doesn't happen very often. It's just you usually get what you pay for with the trench play, with the offensive linemen, especially.
Vikings fans
yeah.
well know. I mean, their history of 3rd and 4th round centers and
Drew
guards.
Samia, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Your
a fun
Wyatt
trivia
Davises.
game right
But like,
now.
is it a
Yeah.
deep class, or is it one that like you got to be in
Honestly,
the second
to be
round
honest,
to get one?
it's in the early goings. I feel like last year was your chance. If you
Last
wanted
year
to.
was outstanding.
Last year was so good, kind of like quarterback this year as well. If you wanted a quarterback, you may have missed the boat there, obviously. Guys like Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are still going to go high, but it's just like, I think when we look back in 5-6 years, it's like that was the quarterback class and the offensive line, especially interior offensive line as well. Saw a lot of those
there's
guys
the
go to
Jordan
the top.
Morgan, the guy from JPJ from Oregon.
The Bucks took the guy from Duke, Graham Barton, who's been pretty solid.
He was
mean,
at
there's
the
just a
kind of
lot
the
of
high end of his projections for where he was drafted. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, I mean, obviously a lot of tackles in that class. Jesus, a lot of interior offensive linemen. Even my guy was drafted, which I didn't think he'd get drafted. Travis Hunter was drafted in the 7th round by the
Travis
Packers.
Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah. Travis
Yeah.
Glover, sorry.
So just in general, it's very early.
Seventh
It does
round,
seem
Travis
like
Travis,
this year's
7th
draft
round
class.
Travis Hunter. Something has gone deeply wrong.
It feels like this year's draft class.
Murder
a little
investigation or something.
Bit, yeah, a little bit weaker for sure. Let's bring in Ron Johnson here real quick. Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show, each and every Thursday. Follow him on X if you haven't already, at 3Ron Johnson. Ron, let me start you with this. Tom Pelissero went on the radio this morning. He said he still believes the smart money is on Sam Darnold back in Minnesota next year. Obviously, they got the money to do that and bring him back. For me, and I think a lot of people agree, it feels like it goes against the grain of your blueprint, though, that competitive rebuild, building around a first-round quarterback on a rookie deal. Now he's entering year 2 already. So what's just your quick knee-jerk reaction, gut feeling, yes or no? Do you think Sam Darnold will be back? And when you look around the rest of the league, too, what type of market do you think he'll have, given the way he finished the season those last 2 weeks? How much did his stock drop, I guess, those last 2 weeks?
I mean, honestly, I don't think it did. Here's the way I look at it. Kevin O'Connell knows what he did wrong in these situations. Like when you look at the play calling, when you look at the opportunities, yeah, there were some times where he could throw the ball. But if I were to look and say, okay, let's go red zone, you got 13 opportunities. If there were 2 opportunities the quarterback could have threw it and 9, you just got your tail beat. You can't put that on the quarterback. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, like he was doing this, he was seeing ghosts. He was like, was he really? Or is that just a buzzword? Honestly, I think competitive rebuild is a buzzword. Like every team every year is trying to get better. Like there is no right or wrong way to do it. There are teams that have the Colts, for instance, with Tony Dungy, never did anything. Was the same exact team. Tony Dungy comes in, eventually just goes and goes and goes, wins the Super Bowl because of Peyton Manning. The Buccaneers, same team Tony Dungy had, did nothing. They bought in a couple players. They got rid of, they benched Keyshawn Johnson. So they got worse as far as their best receiver got benched and they still won a Super Bowl. So winning a Super Bowl is a formula that's magic. Like you got to have some magic happen. You got to, like, if the Chiefs, for instance, if the NFL could figure out what a catch was, half of those games, I don't think end up the way they end up with the Chiefs. Like they got a lot of calls that went their way. They got a lot of touchdowns that got called back, or a lot of catches that probably weren't catches that they gave them. It's a little bit of skill and then it's a little bit of luck. And that's what it comes down to. And the skill part of it is, do you have the play caller that's going to outcoach the defensive guy? I don't think Sam Darnold in this is a 100% scapegoat. I think a little bit of it was because you can't go back to the 14 games that everybody loved him and then say, yeah, he's not worth that money. Like, what's the difference? You're telling me you would take maybe 5 to 6 games from a JJ McCarthy versus a 14 games from Sam Darnold? I can't physically sit there or emotionally sit there and say, oh yeah, we got to move on. So I see what Tom Pelissero sees, which is he's still a good quarterback. Now the question is, what does he want? And I think that's going to be the key.
Yeah. And the Vikings enter this offseason. They got the 24th pick, 3 draft picks right now, projected to have one more, that comp pick for Kirk Cousins, and then close to like $70 million in cap space. So if you were running the show, if I gave you the keys, if you're Kwesi, what's just your early going initial plan A kind of blueprint to use that money and draft capital on first and foremost? Would you go get 2 or 3 studs with all that money? Would you try to spread it around? Any free agent names you're already targeting? What's the Ron Johnson GM offseason game plan?
I'm going to Cancun, first of all. Then I might skip over.
There we go.
I might go to Dubai, check that out for a little bit. Then I might go to Honduras. I'm getting away. Like, so for Kwesi, we know like he's going to unplug. He's got a new baby as well. Congratulations to him and his wife. I know she was pregnant when she was on the Ron Johnson show. So congratulations to Chelsea and Kwesi on that. But the thing about it with the money, again, it's going to come down to this draft, and then what draft picks can you even get with what you have right now? Mm-hmm. Like, are there tradable players that you have the teams are willing to say, I want that guy, but I'm only willing to give you a 4th round pick for him? And you're like, well, we can part ways with this guy. Or, are there guys you try to franchise just to trade them? Like, hey, we're going to franchise this guy and this guy, but we're going to trade you. Like, that's where I'm going first. Like, I'm looking at draft capital. How can I get it? Now with the money, again, it goes back to who you're signing. Like, is it free agent wise? So if you can get a Byron Murphy and a Cam Bynum to stay, and Harrison Smith is willing to come back for cheap, then you can say, okay, I'm gonna spend some money on a potential, like, who's the best center guard out there to come to Minnesota? Who's the best maybe interior 3 technique on this defensive line to come into Minnesota? If you get those guys and you don't pay a ton, what's another cornerback we could use? I think that's the key for this. Is Brian Flores' defense is predicated on pressure, but he does need younger cornerbacks that can move a little bit better than Gilmore. I think Byron Murphy was great, which is why he's a Pro Bowler. Gilmore, at times, it seemed like that's what teams were picking on. When he made the play, we were like, great, but other times than that, it's like he's getting beat. So yeah, I would try to go younger and quicker in the cornerback room. That's it. I think offensively, it's offensive line. I think everything else you're set. Running back wise, you can get one out the draft. Like, we know that. Like, running backs now, the new formula, other than Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, it's let's go try to find a Pacheco every year. Like, can we go find the next Isaiah Pacheco? Can we, because Bijan Robinson, for instance, I know the Falcons love him, but at the same time, they're like, damn. Like, we're probably not paying this guy in 3 years. Like, I don't know if they do. It just doesn't seem like that's the direction the NFL is going. Now, Bijan Robinson's special because he can catch balls. And so maybe they, with his Michael Penix new offense, maybe it's more of a RPO style like the Eagles. And that's the blueprint. Like, hey, we're going to do what the Eagles do. We're going to use our running back and our quarterback as much as possible, mainly our running back. But, I need you to be able to pull it and throw the ball. That's where I'm going with the money. I think the draft, you can get running backs out the draft. I don't know, like interior offense and defensive linemen. Defense more so in the draft, but offensive linemen in the draft, interior, it's tough. Like, it's hard to find guards and centers in that draft.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if the Bijan going top 10, Jahmyr Gibbs going top 15, if that trend continues with somebody like Ashton Genty, who's been a polarizing prospect as well. But you're right, it feels like people are kind of split
now.
Or at least he's the number 1 running back in the class. So
always polarizing.
Well, okay, sure.
Yeah, always polarizing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Ron, I want to get your confidence level here. We talk about guys like Bynum and like Darnold that look like if they hit free agency, they would have big markets. They'd have lots of teams bidding over them and jacking each other's prices up. Would you? Do you think people are being a little too presumptuous about these guys wanting to just like take a team friendly deal, piss away a bunch of money and come back?
Oh, so
Darnold, you can't bind him. Why would you not go onto the market and get a bunch of teams bidding on you?
Cam, maybe take Byron Murphy and Cam Bynum, I would see the reason for them to hit the market. Darnold, I would struggle to say, like, I mean, again, unless it's $150 million and somebody's willing to pay it, because we know there's teams out there that will. Go get your money. Like, I'm never gonna say don't get your money, because that's the tough thing about it. With Bynum and with Byron Murphy, when you look at like Bynum, for instance, everybody knows he's the next incoming Harrison, but also he could say, you know what? Harrison only has like 1 more year left. And reading the stories, you know, I've heard. I mean, we've had Cam Bynum on my show a couple times, but just hearing the stories in the locker room, like hearing them talk about Harrison Smith. I mean, Harrison Smith, he is that guy. Because I remember, was that 2021, 2020, you know, time, like my daughter was selling bracelets. I get a text message. Harrison Smith's like, yo, what's your address? And then I'm like, is this this is not real. Like what the, and so I literally had to text the Vikings and I'm like, yo, can somebody check to make sure Harrison Smith is somebody to steal his phone or something?
Hi, this is Harrison Smith.
Because you know there's scammers out there. You just
leave your name and number after the beep.
Like I'm like wanting to text. Like I didn't know if like his wife had his phone maybe, and he's trying to like, babe, that was Ron I was texting. That was who sent me pictures of bracelets. Like I don't know what was going. Like I was just like,
what pictures are you sending?
Bracelets,
man. But you know, and I'm just like, and all of a sudden I was like, yeah, man, here's my address. I'm like, whatever. If some dude shows up, like hopefully when my neighbor's got a gun ready. And nice car pulls up, Tesla. And I'm like, oh, wait, that is Harrison Smith. And then, you know, he comes up to the door, like, and then he hangs out. Like, he doesn't just come by, get a bracelet and dips. Like, he hangs out. He's playing catch with the kids. Like, he's over there talking to neighbors when they come up. You know, I'm trying to be respectful of his, you know, because I'm telling my neighbors, like, don't go get stuff and try to get it signed. Because it wasn't like we tweeted out, because I didn't want people to know he was going to be there, because then like it would have been nuts.
Right, that's a whole deal.
I just wanted it to be real organic, and the neighborhood people and the people that were stopping by. And it was, you know, 15 to 20 people stopped by within the time he was there. Everybody's respectful of his time. But the fact that he did that, because he could have easily just said, hey, man, I'm going to Venmo you the money, or hey, man, I'm going to send a check, or, you know, whatever. Like, I'm going to go on GoFundMe and I'll just do it on there. Like, he actually drove over because he wanted to meet the kids. He wanted to hear their story and, you know, play catch with them and hang out. And, you know, and I told him, I was like, my daughters don't do football. So, you know, literally my daughter went and grabbed her glove and baseball. Like, dudes out there throwing a baseball around, a softball around. You know, so it's like when I heard the Cam Bynum story, I'm like, that is Harrison Smith. Like, he is legit just a cool guy. I mean, I got a bunch of stories about him, some I can't tell right now. But like times where we've seen each other places and it's just like nobody ever talks about it. Like, he's just that guy. Like, it's just like, yep, I trust you, you trust me, you're good to go. And so I don't see Cam Bynum, like when you have that type of relationship, that's tough to say, like, well, if the Vikings offer me 10 or 8 for whatever years, and the Bengals, for instance, offer me 9 for 1 extra year, is that worth it? Probably not, because you're gaining what, $1 million to $2, $3, $4 million, but you're having to move. You're going to a place that you don't recognize, and you're going to a defense that might suck. And so, and you don't.
And the relationships are different. Like,
correct.
They don't have the same leash that, you know, Kevin O'Connell's giving you.
I've seen a lot of NFL guys jump ship, leave, and then you don't hear from them again because they chase that money, and then it doesn't work out, and they end up either getting cut or asked to take a pay cut, or, I mean, look at Deontay Johnson. Like, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And so I don't see Cam Bynum doing it. I could see Sam Darnold, because he doesn't really have the relationships here. Like, it was a 1-year thing. So for him, it's like, look, if my agent says, you know, this GM and this, because we know the GMs are gonna drop notes to his agent, like they're gonna tamper, like whether they can or there's a period they're not supposed to.
Darnold will know what contracts lie on,
exactly.
They'll be there for him on the other side. Yeah.
Super Bowl week is one of the dirtiest weeks ever, because it's literally just GMs running around doing, you know, interviews, and agents standing around with their players, and then like, oh, you're going to Starbucks? Oh, okay, let me get a grande 4-year, $70 million latte.
And checking each other for wires.
Yeah, and the GM is like, yeah, let me get the refresher, the strawberry acai refresher, $65 million for 4 years. And let me know if I can get that in a venti with a Trenta with an extra year. And then they walk off, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey man, 4 years, $65 million, what you think? You know, like that's how it goes. Like, they all have a way of doing it, whether it's grabbing a drink, grabbing French fries. I mean, I've been there. I've been to Indy. I've seen it. I've been to Super Bowls. I've seen that conversation. Like, it's crazy how it goes. And so I don't even know why they add these.
The Vikings were definitely not tampering with Kirk Cousins at the Minneapolis Super Bowl. I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
that would be crazy. I don't know why he showed up to the Super Bowl that year, but that was crazy.
The Falcons.
Man, remember when we were supposed to get a draft pick for that?
Yeah.
Who reported that? Weird.
I don't know, but the Falcons, they didn't do anything, but just call to check on Kirk. They were like, "Hey, I heard your foot's better. How are you doing?" All right,
just a general check-in.
just a
See how
general
you're doing.
check-in, see how he's doing, because like he knew him from college,
So care about you.
So that's what I say. I can see Sam Darnold leaving. I could see Cam Bynum for sure staying. Like, but Tom Pelissero, again, going back to that, but hitting the market is not always worth it sometimes when you know you have the relationships built.
My question is actually a lot about what you just described, but from the player perspective. Obviously it's different for every player, but generally speaking, how much does that familiarity lead to stuff like hometown discounts? People talk about hometown discounts all the time, but it feels like those don't necessarily always materialize. Yeah. How often are players willing to take a little bit of a pay cut to stay kind of in the same environment with the same coaches, knowing that the coach could leave and become a head coach or whatever, play with the same teammates, that kind of stuff?
All the time. So the biggest is time you've been there. So like Adam Thielen, for instance, it's time you've been there, and as long as you don't feel disrespected. So if they don't disrespect you with like a bogus conversation or number or something like, like flat out like, hey, you're not the future, like that type of stuff, I think gets guys pissed off. If it's more of the like, you're a big piece of this defense, or you're a big piece part of this offense, man, we really think we can win the Super Bowl with you. But we have to pay X, Y, and Z, but what we'll do is we'll make it incentive laden, and we'll make the incentives very easy, because as Luke Bryan, I know he's a capologist guy, those incentives you can pick when they hit your salary cap. So just like for those that saw Deshaun Watson, he didn't do anything. He didn't redo his deal at all. I don't think people realize what he actually did. All he did was he further pushed his contract out so that they can continue to like take a cap hit later. So it's the same money. So he did not give money back. So for those thinking like, oh, he
actually gets it earlier. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And he extended the year so like the cap hit can hit them differently. And that's what they do.
Cap hit and cash flow all the time.
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Yeah, just the cap hit just is like,
terrible.
if it's like, let's say in a couple years, it's a 323. That's the number I think I'm hearing. $323 million cap coming up at some point. Because what is it now? Is it 300 now? Or is it already at 323?
Great question.
Or
I think it's maybe going to be over 300.
Yeah. So I thought it was 291, but maybe I'm off on that, or 292.
Yeah.
But
I think it's unclear right now. We're waiting for that announcement.
But 323, let's just say that's the number 323. The goal is the cap is just to say, like, what is it going to be in 5 to 10 years? Okay, well, shoot. In 10 years, we're probably going to be at 400. So they're like, all right, man, can we put 50 million of yours to that, man? Or can we put 25 million back there so we don't have to take it now, because we know we'll have a bigger cap then? And that's like the Kirk Cousins deals, like his kept getting lower and lower as the cap grew and other quarterbacks got paid. And I think that's what everybody's looking at with Deshaun Watson. That's what guys like Cam Bynum staying could end up doing. Like, hey, Cam, we're going to give you, because the Wolves won't lie, we're going to give you, let's call it, I don't even know what a number would be for a guy like him, but let's call it 60 million. Because what did Antoine Winfield get? I know he's the highest, but like he's not going to get a Winfield deal. So let's be real there. But let's just say it's, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, do you think he's 75% of Antoine Winfield? Like, where do you think he falls in this? Because that's the question. You have to look at who the top is. And then that's why everybody got paid over Kirk Cousins, because they're like, oh shit, oh shoot,
right? Yeah.
They're like, oh shoot, he's my quarterback is 110% over Kirk Cousins, so we got to be more than that. Like Kirk set the market, but then it went. So now for Antoine Winfield,
because everybody wants to say, I want to be paid more than the last guy.
Correct.
So
Justin Jefferson.
Well, I'm not quite as good as Kirk Cousins, so I'll get paid. Like nobody says that. Nobody goes in the
so
negotiation.
Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Antoine Winfield set the market. So when you think about Antoine Winfield setting the market, that's what you have to look at. Where does Cam Bynum?
Yeah, that's the new bar set.
Is he 75% of the production of Antoine Winfield?
I don't think he'll clear like Minka Derwin or Buda Baker. And it'd be tough after the year that Xavier McKinney had to argue that you're better than Xavier McKinney. So I could see
this was a quiet year for him too.
I don't even know if he's in the top 5 of just free agent safety.
That's what I mean.
Now.
Like, it was
Justin
a quiet
Reed.
year because everything was predicated on everybody getting turnovers, the blitzing, and him, Harrison Smith, and Josh Metellus kind of as a 3-headed monster helped with the interceptions. Byron Murphy helped out. The linebackers helped out.
It wouldn't shock me if his like APY was like 15 million or something like that, which is still quite high.
Right. A lot of money. A lot of money.
But
So that's what you have to look at. Like, so if I'm Cam Bynum, would I want to move? Do I want to go to a system that's not like suited for me? And knowing when Harrison leaves, which it could be this year, could be next year, I'm the guy. So, he's going to be the back end guy that gets all the, the free balls and all that stuff. And then they'll have to go find like maybe Theo Jackson jumps in the Cam Bynum role. Maybe Josh Metellus moves back to strong safety. And then they find another person like, well, I don't think you find another Josh Metellus. So that's what the question is going to be is like, do you, and again, you're right. Like if Brian Flores is like, if he's like, hey, coach, are you leaving? Like if he's leaving, then yeah, do you want to sign for 5 years under a defensive guy that might come in and change it versus like, hey, where do you think you're going? And then all of a sudden Cam Bynum signs with the Giants. And we're like, oh, okay. I figured you were going there. And Brian Flores is now they got the actual Brian they wanted. It's like years later. Belichick's like, see, I told you it was Brian. It was you. They picked the wrong Brian. Now they know. That would be hilarious if that was the true story. Like if they actually told Belichick Flores and then somehow they told Dable it's your job. And then they were like, wait a minute, what? You offered the white guy? You were supposed to offer the black guy. Like, what are you doing? and the owner's like, what did you do? He's like, well, it just says Brian in my phone. Like, I didn't know. Because I could see the Giants. Like, that could be like the all-time greatest story ever if that ever comes out that they actually offered. Somebody just said 4-year 84. Thank you to PHT, whatever that is. I don't even know how you say that.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I've never tried pronouncing
nobody
it.
knows.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4-year, $84 million. So is Cam Bynum a $60 million guy? 4 for $60? Like, and that's right where you're at, Arif, the $15 million. So
yeah,
that's kind of, I don't even know why that number is in my head, but I think that's 70%, my 70% number. So, do you go that way? Do you say 15 million for 4 years or do you say 15 for like 5 or 6? But then it's incentive laden. Like, yo, you get 5. Yeah, you get 5 picks. Here you go. If you make the Pro Bowl, here you go. If you make All Pro, here you go. If we make the first round of the playoffs, here you go. If we can actually win a playoff game finally, here you go. And and then you can, if we go to the
everybody
Super Bowl,
eats. Yeah,
everybody eats.
Super Bowl. Here where we go. So you can add that every year. Because Adam Thielen always has that. Like Mike Evans, he got $3 million for 1,000 yards.
Geno Smith got like $6 million that last game.
So there's ways to get these guys money. By the way, I wonder if Mike Evans told the other, because I've heard Ryan Clark talk about that. He was like, I'm not letting this dude catch a ball for whatever for his incentives. I'm trying to take his head off. I wonder if he went to those other guys like, yo, I got 3 coming.
What's your Venmo?
What's your Venmo? Right. Let me
Venmo.
Let me catch this, man. I got 5,000 for you. Like I got a hot.
I mean,
five.
he might even just be, let me catch this. I'll come to your kid's birthday party, man.
Yeah.
I'll send you the jersey I was wearing. No, you could do that. I'll send you this
the
jersey.
Cleats.
You get the gloves.
Look,
yeah.
Look, we're winning this game either way.
That's a $3 million ball that's about to go in his office because I saw him grab it and then run off the field. So that ball is going in his office.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
But yeah, so like I said, there's all kinds of incentives like that. Tackles, you can throw tackles in there, you can throw sacks in there. Because sacks for a safety, that's easy for a team to say, fine. If this dude gets 5 sacks, yes, we will give him another $100,000. Now, the key is, and I've seen this, and you guys have heard stories like this too. Don't be greedy. Don't just go try to sack the quarterback and give up a touchdown because you want your $1 million or whatever that number is. And that's the other reason why some owners don't like those incentives, like Jerry Jones, because they don't want, like say they play 85% of our snaps. I remember Santana Moss when I went to the Commanders or Redskins at the time. He had a workout bonus. He had to make 85% of his workouts and he got $500,000. 85%. Like people go to Lifetime Fitness and pay Lifetime. This dude got paid to come lift weights. 85% of the time they get $500,000. So there's a lot of things you can do to help Cam Bynum out to make him feel like, you know what, I want to be a Minnesota Viking.
Yeah, don't be the Yannick Ngakoue just trying to get those sacks and trying to get that contract. It's going to be a lot of fun to see all this unfold this offseason. Ron, we could sit here and chop it up with you for another hour, but we'll let you go. Check him out every Tuesday on The Ron Johnson Show. Follow all his work on X at 3RonJohnson. We'll do it again.
I do have a question
Thursday.
for you guys to remember, though, right? So
Yep.
think about this one for your next show. Mm-hmm. So Mark Gastineau, I don't know if you guys saw the Brett Favre Gastineau thing, right?
You hurt me, Brett.
Who in today's modern football is gonna be that like who's gonna
Right.
give up something to give somebody a record, and then 20 years from now we're gonna see that guy pissed off.
I would
that he doesn't
love
still have the record.
Jerry Rice to confront that cornerback. That would be so
I
funny.
would love a reality show on this where you
Right,
Because
like,
we still got to
follow.
do the 2,000 yards
Yeah.
for receiver or whatever that number is. I can't remember. And then the running back to beat Eric Dickerson. Like that, that if somebody like
Right.
just lets him rush, like, all right, let's give up a 70-yarder. He can have this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like we're 1 in 15. So I don't care about this game.
Yeah, right.
I just wonder who's going to be the
It's gonna
future
happen.
Mark Gastineau.
Yes,
at
it's gonna
some
happen.
point
The
that
Jerry
gives up
Rice
something.
example is like the funniest one to me because Gastineau kind of only has that, so you understand like why it was really important. Jerry Rice has every record,
Everything.
every single record. So for him to care about someone tying his 1,000-yard consecutive season is just like in my brain. That is extremely funny.
It is pretty good. It is pretty.
Oh
good.
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that corner.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
All
he
right,
don't
Ron.
care about Jerry. Don't care about that one.
No, Ron, we'll do it again
I
next
got
Thursday.
like 6 more of those. I'm good.
Appreciate it.
All right, Ron Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. We got to get to our gambling picks. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Rocket Money. You know Rocket Money helps you find subscriptions you forgot about, or maybe you're paying for them twice. It happened to me. Turns out there was multiple subscriptions that I had. I didn't even realize I was still paying for. Luckily, Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. Rocket Money is a personal finance app. It helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It also monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings all at once, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, even your goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, real quick, rapid fire gambling update. We stink. 0-4. Everybody lost. Still trying to get on the board this week. So obviously no Viking game to choose from. So according to Sam, everything's on the table. I don't really think it matters the order we go because I'm assuming people can double up on like one prop.
Yeah, everything's on the table.
Let me read
If
you
anyone's
Sam's.
ready and got one, fire it off.
Well, let me read Sam's here real quick. He's got the Chiefs money line. He's going money line. All the way up and down the board. Chiefs money line, Lions money line, Eagles money line, Ravens money line. So 4 money lines,
okay.
4-leg parlay.
All
That's
right.
plus
4
2.
favorite money lines. Got it.
That's I mean, Ravens. I mean, are they even going to win? Are they going to?
And what does that get him?
Ravens?
They're
What
minus
odds
6.
does that get him?
So that gets them plus 268.
Okay.
Plus 268, but you got 5 different bets you got to win. Either of you go ahead if you got yours. I know what I want. I just have to plug it in and see the odds, what the odds come up.
I just made fun of Sam for doing
And
a
you're gonna
coward's
do it.
parlay. Yes.
Yep.
I inspired by Luke Braun's cowardice last week to take alt lines. I have taken 4 alt lines. Most of them from the Commanders-Lions game. The Lions are really good at a lot of things, defending against rushing quarterbacks, historically not one of them. So Jaden Daniels, 40-plus rushing yards. And then Lions are going to throw a little bit, catch up. Jared Goff, 225-plus passing yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 50-plus receiving yards. Love the correlated parlays. And then in another game, just have another game going.
Yep.
I got Josh Allen, 40-plus rushing yards against the Ravens. Who also
Josh Allen, 40-plus rushing yards.
So
And
that is
pays out.
plus 237.
Plus 237. Okay.
Game time.
Game time. All right. I got a 3-legger going. Dalton Kincaid over 30.5 at minus 114. Amon-Ra, 6 or more receptions, minus 235. Joe Mixon over 17.5 receiving yards, minus 114.
Oh,
that plays out plus 402. And it doesn't matter the wager, right? We're all doing the same wager, $100
Yeah,
every
it's all
time.
$100. Yeah.
$100 every time at plus
Sam is not
402.
giving us flexibility in this regard.
No, not at all. All right, Luke Braun.
I'm going to do a nice, responsible plus 300 parlay again with some alt lines. Jahmyr Gibbs plus 70 yards. Khalil Shakir, 5 or more receptions, and a Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown scorer. That gets me plus 308.
Ooh, plus
Oh, I like
308.
that one.
I like it. That's pretty solid. Okay, I like it. All right, we got our picks in the book. Just hoping somebody gets on the board this week. Time is running out. 2 more rounds to go. A lot of fun per usual. We got to get out of here. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. After you're done with this, go check out Luke on Locked On Vikings. Arif always killing it over at the Wide Left Substack. Anything new as of late, by the way? I always like to ask you, anything new as of late you've been working on that just got published, perhaps, Vikings related, we can go check out?
You can check out anything I did on Patreon all year long. It's all free now. Otherwise, now I'm into off-season stuff on Locked On Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arif.
Luke Braun has egregiously quit from publishing for the next week or two. I don't know. At Wide Left
I don't know what's
He's pushing
I'll
union.
come
He's
up
going
with
on
an
strike.
idea and then
He's
I'll
pushing
write
union.
it.
Yeah. He's forming a union with himself.
myself.
Yeah. As a collective bargaining Luke, he will be...
I'm going to call Ben Natan.
Yeah.
Ben Natan. Oh, man. That's a name drop.
Please don't talk to Ben. I believe he's working for free. So if you could just not talk to him.
That's how they get you. They don't want you talking. That's why it's rude to talk about your salary.
Right. I would hate to split the Uncrustable that I give to you between you and Ben.
That you shove through the bars of the cage.
No, right now over at Wide Left, I've got 2 pieces that are doing pretty well. One is about like why people are fans of teams like the Vikings that tend to hurt them a lot. That's gotten a lot of positive reception. So read that. And then also I've got my end of year award. So I selected an MVP.
Ooh, fun.
I got all pro list. I got rookies of the year. I try to be really unorthodox. And then
The Vikings Dundee Awards. I like it. More or less.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, can't wait to check both those out. We'll be back Monday with the full crew. Go like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Keep up with all the action. Ron Johnson, Arif, the 2 Lukes. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.